Welcome to this complete guide for 2026 on the TfL PHV SERU assessment. Now, this video is for anybody who is preparing for their assessment. So whether you have no previous knowledge and are starting at zero, or you have already perhaps attempted the test but have not passed, this is the perfect video for you. In this video, we're going to be looking at, first of all, an overview of the test, what to expect, and then looking at the different types of questions in the test, and finally sharing some tips and strategies on how to prepare for and pass the test. First of all, what is the SERU? So it is the Safety, Equality and Regulatory Understanding. It is a mandatory test which all taxi and PHV drivers must pass to maintain their license, or if they are applying for a new license, to be granted a license. It is a computer-based test, which means that there is no writing, no pen and paper. It is all done on a computer. And the test assesses your ability to understand the driver handbook, as well as your general English reading abilities. The test is taken at a TfL assessment centre. In terms of booking the test, you have to wait for TfL to invite you. So if you are a new applicant, this will be after you have submitted all of your documents and TfL have done an initial review of your application. They will invite you to book all three of your assessments. If you are an existing driver and have not yet done your SERU, you will need to pass it before your renewal date, and TfL will contact you well in advance to invite you to book your test. Now, until you receive your invitation to book the test, you will not be able to take the tests. Okay, so you cannot book them yourself until TfL have sent you your invitation letter, which is an email and a letter which will come to your address. The cost for the test is £36 for the first attempt and £16 for every resit that you need. Usually you get your results in 15 days, and you are given 3 attempts. For new applicants, you are given 3 attempts. For existing drivers, the number of attempts you'll be given is not limited, provided that you do attend all of your invitations. So let's take a look at an overview of the test format. The test lasts for 60 minutes and it is open book. What this means is they will give you the handbook during the test to look up the answers for the questions. And as I said before, the test is assessing your ability to read the handbook. There are 36 questions, and we will look at the different types of questions in a moment. Overall, you need 60% correct answers to pass. Now, here are some common questions that we get from students. First of all, they ask whether they will be allowed to take a pen or a paper, and the answer is no. TfL will provide you a copy of the driver handbook during the assessment. So you don't need to worry about taking your own in, and you will not be allowed to take your own in. They will give you a copy. The copy they will give you has larger font than the PDF version made available online by TfL. This larger font will allow people who have trouble reading small font to be able to read clearly. And if you run out of time before you've completed all 36 questions, you don't need to worry. The questions that you do complete in the 60 minutes are automatically saved. So let's say, for example, you don't get to question number 36, you don't complete all 36, you only complete 20. You don't get to the end and click submit. Your questions are already saved anyway. So whatever you do in that time is saved and recorded. Let's move on to look at the different types of questions. So the first questions that you will come across are the fill in the blank questions. After 12 fill in the blank questions, you're going to get 22 multiple choice questions. And finally, at the end, you will get 2 short passage questions, also referred to as reading and understanding paragraphs. Let's take a look at these different question types. So, as we said, the first type of question that you're going to come across, the 12 first questions, are all fill in the blank questions. Now, fill in the blank questions, the way they work is you are given a sentence or a short passage which has 3 blanks. It will always have exactly 3 blanks, and each blank has a drop down. So you will need to select the correct answer from the drop down of 6 options. Each question at the top will always say the section where you can find the correct answers from. So for example, in this one, the question is based on section 4. Let's take a look at how to answer this example question. So the very first thing that you want to do is to read the section number, section 4, and turn to section 4. So I'm going to pull up a copy of the handbook. Remember, you will have a copy of the handbook during the test. Here is the PHV driver handbook for the SERU assessment. So the second page is a contents page, and this will show you the page numbers and the sections. So if we go back to here, the question is based on section 4. The first thing that you want to do is to turn to section 4. Then we want to read the question. So this sentence starts with, if a passenger is aggressive or blank, tell your operator. So I'm not going to read the rest of it for now. All I want to do is to read the beginning of it. And I'm going to look for the same words in the handbook in section 4. So we are looking for if a passenger is aggressive or something, blank. So I'm going to read through here and I'm looking for, remember, if a passenger is aggressive. So during your test, you will have the screen in front of you and the paper handbook next to you. So it will be very easy for you to look at the screen and to find the words in the handbook. So if we scroll down, we're looking for if a passenger is. So you're going to look through this, and over time, as you practice the questions in mock tests and read the handbook, you will get better at finding this information. The first time that you do this, it will be quite slow because there are 55 pages, around 55 pages in this handbook. So it won't be very easy to spot it your first time round. So as we can see, there's a sentence here which reads, if a passenger is aggressive. So let's compare this and see if it is the same sentence. If a passenger is aggressive, or tell your operator. If a passenger is aggressive or violent, tell your operator immediately and give them the passenger's full name and address, if you know it. So we can see that this is the exact same sentence. Now all we need to do is to fill in the blanks. So the first word, if a passenger is aggressive or violent, is what we read. So let's take a look, and we can see the answer is here, violent. Tell your operator immediately and give them the passenger's full something. So if we take a look here, give them the passenger's full name. Okay, so the second one is name. Now be careful. Sometimes what you will come across is that the options in the drop downs are very similar to each other. However, there will be subtle differences, small differences. So in this case, we have a singular and a plural name or names. And the way to tell which one is correct is always look at the handbook. What does it say? What does it mean? So clearly it says name, not names. And address. Okay? So what are the options that we have? Address and address with one S. So they both again look very similar. Similarly, sometimes you are tested between incorrect and correct spelling of words. If we look at the handbook, we can see that address has two S's at the end, okay, and two D's, of course. So the correct answer is address with two S's. Let's look at another example. So again, the first thing that we want to do is to look at the section number and turn to that section first before we do anything else. So here we are, and I'm going to turn to the contents page and turn to section number 1, which is on page 6. Now, some of these sections are very long, as you can see. Okay, section 1 especially is quite long, and the sections have headings. Okay, so you can see here they have subheadings: licensing requirements, private hire driver's license, your PHV driver's badge, lost PHV driver badge and license, etc., etc., medical conditions. So these will help you to be able to narrow down or to identify where to find that information. And as I said before, the first time that you do this, it will take quite some time. That's why it's very important to practice questions and mock tests, not just read the handbook. When you get to the real test, you're going to have 60 minutes to answer 36 questions. which is roughly 1 minute and 40 seconds per question. It is not a lot of time. So if you haven't had the practice, you may struggle. If you haven't had the practice of looking up the answers from the handbook, you may struggle. Okay? So back to the question. Now that we've turned to the section, we're going to read the first few words in the sentence. You must be physically fit. This will mean that you will need to something, a medical examination. So, by reading this, I can see that the passage is talking about physical fitness, a medical, things of that nature. This will help me to narrow down where to find the answer from section 1, because section 1 is quite long. Okay? So, remember, the sentence begins with you must be physically fit, and it is to do with a medical examination. So if we scroll down, we can see this is about licensing requirements. You must, and we can see here, you must be physically fit. This will mean that you will need to have a medical examination with a doctor who has access to all of your medical records. The medical requirements are the DVLA Group 2 medical standards. Let's compare this now to the sentence. You must be physically fit. This will mean that you will need to have a medical examination with a doctor who has access to all of your medical records. Okay? Have is the word. You will need to have medical examination with a doctor who has access to all of your medical records, who has access. So here what you're seeing is two words which are pronounced similarly and have somewhat similar spelling, excess and access. But if we check the sentence, it clearly says access, not excess. So be careful. Access to all of your medical records. The medical requirements are the something medical standards, and we have two options, DVLA Group 2, DVLA Group 2, which are the same in terms of what they say, but if we look closely, one of them has a lowercase g and another one has an uppercase G. In these examples, you want to look at exactly what is written in the handbook. If you have a proper noun, then it will have some capital letters. So for example, disclosure and barring service, this is another proper noun, and you can see the D is a capital letter, the B is a capital letter, and so is the S. Similarly here, DVLA Group 2, the G in group is a capital letter. So we're going to select Group 2, where it is a capital letter. Let's take a look at another example. Again, first thing that we're going to do is to turn to section 2. Section 2. And this sentence reads, something, PHV, must have something or reward something. A very short sentence, and you can get some of these. So there isn't a lot to go by in terms of trying to find the beginning of the sentence or even most of the sentence. But we do have a key word here. So if you have a short sentence, what you can do is look for a key word. A key word is one that is not very common. And here we have the word reward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a sentence that has the word reward and PHV must have. So looking through this, I can't see reward anywhere yet, and I'm going to keep reading. Again, as I said, over time, when you practice this will become a lot quicker for you because you will already have a mental map of where the different parts in each section are. Okay, so here I can see the word reward and I can see PHV as well, and this is one sentence, so let's compare it. Every PHV must have hire or reward insurance. Okay, if I compare it to this, I can see the word every. So the first word was every PHV must have hire or reward insurance. Hire and hire. Both of them sound similar, okay? But the spelling, the correct spelling for this word hire is H-I-R-E in the meaning, in the context here, of insurance. It's hire and reward, not higher as in higher and lower. Hire or reward insurance. So not insures, insurance. And if we look at the sentence, we can see it says insurance. So there we go. Those are 3 examples of fill in the blank questions. As I said, the first 12 questions that you're going to get are all fill in the blank questions. After that, you will have 22 multiple choice questions. Now, before we continue, I would like to share a number of free resources that you're going to find extremely helpful if you are preparing for the PHV SERU assessment. The first is our set of free example questions that you can find on our website. You don't need to create an account, and you'll be able to practice the 3 different types of questions that you can expect in the assessment. These include multiple choice questions, fill in the blank questions, and reading and understanding questions. Now, one thing to note is that there are a lot of free mock tests, free questions, and also questions in YouTube videos available on the internet. However, not all questions that you're going to come across are accurate. Many of them are using the old and out-of-date format, which looks like this. Some of them are also incorrectly labeling questions with page numbers for the answers. However, this is incorrect because in the real test, you will not be given the page number where you can find the answers to any question. You will be given the section number, as you can see here at the top. Every question will have a section number. So our practice questions are in the official format, the same format that you will find in your assessment. The second resource that you might find useful is a playlist from TfL themselves, where they have made videos for each of the sections of the PHV handbook. So the 10 sections are covered using videos with images and a voiceover explaining all of the contents of the handbook. So this is very useful for somebody who maybe prefers to not read or wants to have it on in the background whilst they're doing other tasks, for example, driving, etc., etc. You can listen to these videos, or you can watch the videos in your own time. The third resource that I'd like to share with you that you may find useful is our tutorial videos for the basics of English that you need for the SERU assessment. Now, in the SERU assessment, a lot of what they test is your ability to find the answers from the handbook, but they have many trick questions where the answers are very similar, especially when it comes to, for example, singular and plural answers, or words that are spelt similarly, or even other types of words that might be, for example, and versus a, or capital letters versus lowercase letters. So this tutorial series covers all of those rules with example questions. So they're very useful if you want to improve on those fill in the blank questions, which tend to be the most tricky questions for most students. So let's now take a look at some examples of multiple choice questions. Here is a multiple choice question. So again, similar to what we had before, at the top you will always have the section number. This question is section number 1. So I'm going to turn to section number 1. Here we are, section number 1 begins on page 6. Let's now read the question. Drivers should tell TfL immediately if they develop which of the following medical conditions. So what you want to do is to understand the general topic of the question. This will help us to identify where to find the answer. Okay, so they're talking about medical conditions. If we now turn to the handbook, in section 1 there are loads of different subheadings and topics. So this is about licensing requirements, not specifically about medical conditions. It talks about medical examinations, but medical conditions is talked about further down. So if we keep going, driver's badge, lost driver's badge and license, medical conditions, here we are. So this should have the information that we're looking for. And the question is asking us, drivers should tell TfL immediately if they develop which of the following medical conditions. So now let's take a look for maybe a list of conditions that drivers need to report. And here we can see we have a list. At the top it says, you should tell TfL immediately if between medical examinations you develop a new medical condition that may affect your ability to drive. So with multiple choice questions, they are somewhat different to fill in the blank questions. They will not always be worded exactly the same. They're expecting you to find the information, read the information, understand the information, and extract the answers. Okay? So, you should tell TfL immediately if you develop any of these medical conditions. So here's the list. Now, the question has told us to select two answers, and we have 4 options. So which of these are in the list? Let's compare. We have psychiatric illnesses, eczema, gum disease, and neurological conditions. So first of all, in this list, we don't see eczema. So eczema is definitely not correct. Do we see gum disease? No, gum disease is not here. However, we do see psychiatric illness and neurological conditions. So those two are the 2 correct options that we can select from the list. Let's take a look at another example. Again, first thing that we want to do is, that's right, turn to the section. In this case, it is section 5, driver behavior. Let's read the question now. Aside from your operator, who else may passengers complain to about drivers? Select 2 answers. So this is regarding complaints. Okay? Who may passengers complain to aside from your operator? And we have some options. Again, we are told to select 2 correct answers. In your assessment, this will be the same. Where you have a multiple choice question that has more than 1 correct answer, you will be asked to select 2 answers. So, let's try to find this information about complaints within section 5. And this is section 5, and at the very beginning already we can see the subheading complaints. So we should be able to find the information here. So the question is asking us again, who may passengers complain to apart from your operator? So if we begin reading here, we can see it says, although your operator may normally deal with complaints, passengers might contact the police or TfL directly. So already we have 2 people that passengers may contact to complain other than your operator. We have the police and we have TfL. So let's take a look at the answers that were available. Police is definitely one, and then we have TfL. Those are the 2 correct answers that were mentioned. Okay. If we look here, if we want to be absolutely sure, we can see that DVLA is not mentioned, and also Home Office is not mentioned. Now there's a very important point to be made here. Sometimes what happens with students is they read a question and they will select the correct answers based on what they think makes sense to them. Now in this question, yes, it is plausible that in some strange way a passenger may make a complaint to the Home Office. They may do, right? It's not appropriate and it's not the first point of contact. They may also make a complaint to the DVLA, which again may not be relevant. But what we need to do is to look at the handbook and what the handbook says, not what we think in our minds is correct. So clearly in the handbook it says they may contact the police or TfL. Now we're going to take a look at the short passage questions, also referred to as reading and understanding paragraphs. Now for these questions, they will always be at the end of the test. So the 2 last questions that you get will be the reading and understanding paragraphs. Now these questions are somewhat different. The way they are different is that all other questions in your test will state at the top where to find the answer from. Okay, so if we go back, we can see the fill in the blanks at the top, section number. The multiple choice questions again, section number at the top. However, the reading and understanding paragraphs, the short passage questions, are different. They are not always based on the handbook. They will be based on a short paragraph that they will provide to you before the question. So let's take a look at an example so you can understand. The beginning of the question will always read, the answer to this question can be found by reading the paragraph below. And then they will give you the paragraph. So let's zoom in so we can read this a little bit better. In recognition of the current situation, we will be granting short-term PHV driver licenses for a period of 3 months, where it is appropriate to do so, and we are satisfied that drivers meet the fit and proper criteria. This is a short-term measure and will only be valid for existing PHV drivers where all the required information has been provided in the application, and where there are no medical concerns or adverse information that require further investigation. And then they also mention the source where this information comes from, most of the time this is not relevant. The main thing is that you read and understand the paragraph. Once you've read the paragraph, then you can read the question. So, which drivers affected by delayed applications may be granted short-term licenses? So the question is asking us which drivers may be granted short-term licenses who've been affected by the delayed applications. And we have a number of options. Existing PHV drivers with complete applications and no outstanding concerns, new PHV driver applicants, and all existing PHV drivers. So these two questions at the end are definitely more challenging than the other questions, okay? And they will take a bit more time. They are also worth more marks, and we're going to look at the mark system in a few minutes. But let's take a look at how to answer these questions. So once you've read the paragraph initially and read the question and looked at the options and understood it, now what you can do, and what I recommend, is to get rid of answers that are incorrect. Okay, so if we read this, we can see that they will be granting short-term PHV driver licenses for a period of 3 months where it is appropriate to do so, and when they are satisfied that the drivers meet the fit and proper criteria. This is a short-term measure and will only be valid for existing PHV drivers. So based on this already, it's only for existing PHV drivers, meaning that we can definitely cross out or know that this answer here is incorrect. It's not for new PHV drivers at all. Okay, it is not for new applicants, it's for existing PHV drivers. Now we have two options. We have all existing PHV drivers, or we have existing PHV drivers with complete applications and no outstanding concerns. So when we read this, we can see that it says where all the required information has been provided in the application and where there are no medical concerns or adverse information that requires further investigation. So there are some extra conditions. It's not just for all existing PHV drivers, it is for those PHV drivers who have a complete application and there is no extra information that is outstanding or needed. So therefore the correct answer is the first one. So as you can see, this type of question definitely takes a bit more time, but that is also why it is worth more marks. Let's take a look at one more example. So again, the first thing that we're going to do is to quickly read the paragraph. Any applicant who has lived in a country other than the UK since the age of 18 for one or more continuous periods of 3 months or more in the 10 years preceding the date of application is required to complete a living abroad details form. The applicant will then be asked to produce a certificate of good conduct from every relevant country. To obtain a COGC, a certificate of good conduct, the applicant should approach the relevant embassy, consulate or high commission. A translation is required if it is not provided in English. Applicants who need to provide a COGC will need to ensure they provide proof of its authenticity from the UK embassy, consulate or high commission of the country of issue. Okay? Now let's read the question. Where can a taxi or PHV driver applicant get a COGC from if required? And here are the options. Okay, so there's a few bits of different information in here, but the question is asking us specifically, where can applicants get a COGC from? Where can they get it from? So again, if we look at the paragraph one more time, let's try to find the answer. So the first sentence is telling us about when they need to get it, if they've lived for more than 3 months in the last 10 years abroad. So that's not really relevant for the question here. The question is saying, where can they find the COGC? Where can they get it from? To obtain a COGC, the applicant should approach the relevant embassy, consulate or high commission. So there we go. Those are the 3 places. The embassy, consulate or high commission. The 3 possible options. Okay. Now let's take a look at the answers and see which of these we can cross out or get rid of. So this is the method that I recommend. Look at the options and see which ones you can identify as definitely being incorrect. Okay, so the options are the embassy of the country they were born in. So in this whole paragraph, it is not mentioned at all the country that the applicant was born in at all. So definitely this answer is incorrect. Now we have two other options: the British Embassy or the embassy of the country they lived in for more than 3 months. Okay, so here they are talking about the relevant embassy, consulate or high commission in the country that they lived in. Okay, so the COGC is from every relevant country. Okay, so the relevant countries are the countries that they have lived in. This is not the British Embassy, so not the UK. They will need to get the COGC from the countries that they have lived in. So the answer is the embassy of the country they lived in for more than 3 months. Because we have options embassy, consulate or high commission, embassy is a correct option. So again, these questions will take more of your time than the other questions, but they are worth more marks. Let's now take a look at the mark scheme. We have looked at all of the different question types and have done some examples. So with the 3 types of questions that we have, the fill in the blanks questions are worth 2 marks. The multiple choice questions are worth a single mark. And the reading and understanding paragraph questions or the short passage questions are worth 2 marks. So as you can see, the fill in the blanks questions carry the most number of marks. There's 12 of them and there's 2 marks each, total of 24 marks. Whereas the multiple choice questions, 22 questions, 1 mark each, 22 marks. And the reading and understanding paragraphs, there's only 2 of them and they're worth 2 marks. So that being said, you really want to get good at answering the fill in the blanks questions, and these are where most students struggle. The multiple choice questions, because they are multiple choice, you can also somewhat guess the answers, but they tend to be generally easier than the fill in the blanks questions. The fill in the blanks questions definitely need more practice. In the assessment, quite like you see here in our software for the mock tests, you will have the option to move past questions and come back to questions as well. So one tip that I will definitely give you is, if you are doing a question, any question, and you get stuck, you cannot find the answer, do not spend more than 2 minutes on that question. You will have a timer in your test. It will show you how much time you have left. So try not to spend too much time on questions that you are struggling with. What you can do is simply skip that question and then answer the rest of the questions. When you get to the end of that question of the test, you can come back to that question. Okay, and you can do this by using the review option. So the review option, all it does is it just flags the question for you. Okay, so for example, this question here, I can click review and it puts a little marker on it so that I can come back to it later. So let's say, for example, I struggled with this question, I can't answer it, I will move on to the other questions, and then once I've completed all of them, I can look back and say, okay, question number 4, I flagged it for a review, let me now go back and try to answer this question. So what that will do is, that will save you time, because one of the reasons students fail the test is because when they come across questions that they struggle with, they end up spending 5-10 minutes, and you don't have that much time. Remember, you have 1 minute and 40 seconds on average, roughly, per each question. So do not try to spend more than 2 minutes on a question. If you see that you're struggling, leave the question, move on to another question. Don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself. Try to answer the remaining questions, and if you have time at the end, come back to that question. And once again, remember, the questions at the beginning, the fill in the blank questions, are worth more marks, whilst the paragraph questions are also worth more marks, but there's not as many of them. There's only 2 of them. Now that being said, it is important to make sure you're practicing good quality questions, and remember that the reading and understanding paragraph questions are not going to be from the handbook. They will be from various sources. Usually they are from the TfL website or taxi and private hire notices or the taxi and private hire policy. Basically information that's relevant to being a private hire or taxi driver. Now, for those of you who are preparing for your SERU assessment, I'm going to take you through the options we have which allow you to prepare for the assessment depending on your needs. So first of all, if you're somebody who is new to the SERU assessment and this is your first time taking the test, then what I would recommend is to take the online course, which is this one. So let's take a close look at it. This is the course that most of our students use to pass the test. Thousands of students have passed using this course, and it has over a 95% pass rate amongst those who complete the course. The course takes you through all of the 10 sections of the handbook, section by section, topic by topic, and you will be able to do all of the questions for each topic. This way, you will be familiarized with the handbook and the questions for each topic. It of course covers all of the different types of questions, including multiple choice, fill in the blanks, and reading and understanding. And if there are any terms that you don't understand, you can simply hover over them and it will tell you the meaning of those terms. So we have made the first topic a free sample lesson. So for those of you who are interested, you can go over onto the website and try this out. So as you can see, all of the sections are broken down into simple topics that allow you to read and understand the topic and then go on to do a short quiz, including the questions that you would expect on that topic. At the end of the 10 sections, you have 5 full mock tests, which are in the same format as the real assessment, meaning they are timed, 60 minutes, 36 questions with the same numbers, 12 of them being fill in the blank, 22 multiple choice, and 2 reading and understanding. And of course, at the end of every test, you are able to view your answers and the correct answers. You can take those tests, the mock test, as many times as you need to during the access period, which is 4 weeks by default. If you need it for longer, we can arrange that. Simply contact us by sending us a message. There are also 2 other options that you may want to consider depending on your situation. So for those of you who have taken the test before and you have struggled in particularly with the fill in the blanks questions, then what you want to do is to focus just on those. And we have put together 360 fill in the blank questions, which from these you would expect to get 12 in your test. So this is the best option for you to focus just on the fill in the blanks, and they are structured as mock tests. So you will have 10 mock test style packs of questions, 36 in each one, which allow you to practice them. And of course, at the end, you can see the answers. If you are somebody who feels rather confident in your ability to pass the SERU assessment, or maybe you don't have as much time and you want to prepare as soon as possible, then you can consider taking the mock test pack instead. So the mock test pack will not take you through the handbook. This is for somebody who has maybe already read the handbook or feels confident in their ability to find answers from the handbook and they just want to practice and get into it. Then you can go for the mock test pack, which includes 6 mock tests that you can use over 10 days and have unlimited attempts. For those of you who are interested in our SERU online course, which contains everything that you need to prepare for the assessment, the course is available at the moment on the website for £40, and the price may change in the near future, but at the moment it is discounted to £40. Let's take a look at a preview of what the course contains.
Looking to prepare for the TfL SERU assessment? You're in the right place. Welcome to the official format online course for the TfL SERU assessment. This video gives you an overview of the online course, what it contains and how it works. The course covers all 10 sections of the PHV driver handbook. Every section is broken down into small lessons that make it easy to learn. Each lesson contains simplified information, images and diagrams to help you learn. If there are any words you don't understand, you can hover over them to view their meaning. At the end of the lesson you will find practice questions to test your understanding. The course contains over 500 up-to-date SERU questions for practice, and new questions are always being added. The questions include fill-in-the-blank questions, multiple choice questions, and reading and understanding questions. The practice questions are in the official format as the real test and our software is identical. Each question comes with the answers. You can view which questions you got correct and incorrect and go back and try again as many times as you want.
Once you have completed all 10 sections, you will have access to 5 mock tests for practice.
The mock test is timed and is just like the real assessment. At the end you will be given your marks. During the course, you will have access to live support via WhatsApp. You can study on laptop, tablet or mobile phone in your time when you are free. The course is accessible by logging into our website. You don't need to download anything. To get started, click on the blue button and enter your email address and password to register an account. You will then have immediate access to the course for practice. If you're still wondering whether this course is right for you, rest assured, our courses have helped thousands of TfL PCO drivers pass their assessments. Begin the journey to pass your SERU today.
For those of you who are wondering whether the course will help you to actually pass the assessment, I would recommend heading over to the website and taking a look at the results of previous students who have taken the course. So as you can see from the date, these are quite recent, and we upload at the end of every month the certificates of some students who would like to share theirs with us. As you can see, many of them do very well in assessments. And the other thing that I would recommend is to head on over to our Facebook page and look at the 120 reviews so far that previous students have left. In particular, take a look at the comments that they leave regarding the similarity between our training material, our questions, our software, and what you will get in the actual assessments. The reason we have so many students who are able to pass and such a high pass rate is because every time a student takes the test, we follow up very quickly and ask them if there were any differences between our training material and what they received in the test. And we immediately update our courses and training material using that feedback if there are differences. So what this means is that when it comes time for you to practice using the courses, you will get the most accurate and up-to-date questions and software. Now, for those students who have taken the test a number of times and have still not been able to pass, especially those students who English is for them and maybe a second or even a third language, and therefore they really struggle with their assessment, we are here to help you with one-to-one training for the SERU assessment. We have instructors who speak a wide array of languages, including Urdu, Bangla, Pashto, etc., etc. So get into contact with us on any of these numbers or visit our website so that we can book you in for a 1-hour lesson where we will be able to assess your current level and tell you exactly what you need in order to fully prepare to pass your assessment. We've had many students in similar situations where they have done the test a number of times and have still not been able to pass, and we were able to get them across the line. It is never too difficult to prepare for this test and to pass it. So if you do need help, please reach out.